Now, technological advancements like drones and artificial intelligence are revolutionizing the agriculture industry. Kiona Rivera joined North Dakota State University Extension agents at the Minot Field Day earlier this morning and learned about their robot to help with weed control.
Farmers and scientists say this is a great year for agriculture in North Dakota. But as many farmers' crops flourish, so do invasive species and weeds. Weed specialist from the North Dakota State University Extension, Joe Eichley, says kochia is the worst weed across the state.
We don't want weeds because they're competing with our crops for nutrients, water, sunlight, etc.
Eichley says invasive weeds can alter the ecosystem and can be very problematic in rural areas. NDSU professor Rex Soon joined PhD students in building a robot to help.
With our robot or AI technology, by recognize the weed specific location and kill the weed for you, so that can save 50 to 70% of your herbicide usage.
The robot sure wasn't easy to build, but PhD students studying biosystems engineering say the work it produces is worth it.
As we recognize the weed in a particular location, this robot will move to that location and the delta arm will exactly go to that location and it will pull the weed mechanically.
Soon says the farming business faces challenges like labor shortage, high costs of products, and maintaining overall environmental health. But he says this innovation could solve some of those problems.
So we do not want any chemical stuff or more chemical stuff going to those kind of crops, and then we as consumers will be the end user to consume that in our body.
The entire robot is mobile and can be driven over various terrains.
This robot drives in 2 batteries. So what we are doing is like drive the system with the 2 batteries and remaining 2 batteries will be connected to the solar.
Engineers say this is great for organic farmers because there's no spraying involved. In Minot, I'm Kiona Rivera reporting for your News Leader.
He says they have more than 10 active research projects collaborating with farmers. Some of the other projects include a canola nitrogen monitoring system and working with the USDA to diagnose sunflower diseases.